passionate as I was earlier, this doesn't make sense. Me flatlining right now.
Hello.
Hey, Simon. Good.
Hello. And today, our guest is Nelson J. Zambrano on the Africa Investor Stories podcast. And I, of course, am your host, Simon Rushton. Welcome to have you, Nelson.
And Simon, I'm also very happy to be here.
That's good. Just to give everybody an insight into Nelson, he had his own management company, his own company called Normandy Group, which is about blocks of flats, apartments, so in American terms, and just blocks of flats. And you're also, sorry, my mind's just gone blank. I haven't got my notes. He's traveled the world, he's ex-military, and he's done, he's born in America, went to school in South America, and now lives and resides in America. He has his own podcast as well, and he is doing great things. We have brought him on the show because he understands about the investment process. It's not just talking about investing in Africa. We do have guests who are experts in their field at investing in general. So you can take the skills that he had learned and we can utilize them for Africa, for those of our listeners. So first of all, let's start off with, what's a typical day for you as in the industry, what you're doing now in your life?
Well, Simon, I'm still trying to figure out what a typical day is for me. Right now, I'm in a phase of ramping things up. I'm doing a bigger ramping up. As you mentioned, I'm a prior military, former military. So when we make that transition out, sometimes we can be in a state of flux or loss. We talked about this earlier. You don't have that huge infrastructure, that support system. And really a lot of that support system is the camaraderie that we get, the camaraderie that you have. You can count on the person on your left, the man on your left, the man on your right, the woman on your left, the woman on your right. And so you're a bit of a void, excuse me. So my typical day now is in ramping things up. And that started last quarter, actually really heavily at the end of November, right after Thanksgiving, actually right before Thanksgiving, because there's a certain place I want to be in the next 90 days, in the next 3 to 5 years. So I get up relatively early. I exercise. I follow a program called Savers, and that's scribing, journaling, affirmations, visualization, very important, exercising, reading, and meditation. So that helps me kind of set my mind for the rest of the day and reminds me why I'm doing things. When I don't do that, I kind of lose the battle of the day, or at least the morning. So I get that done, and then I'll look to attack the things I need to get accomplished throughout the day, or at least push the ball forward. But that is how I generally start my day. And in the evening, which is very important, it's to properly close down the day, review what I've done, not beat myself up too much. I have a journal, which the viewers can't see, but I write in the journal my notes for myself. And I try to prime my brain, or I prime my brain so that when I wake up, there's very little interruption. I do not check my phone in the morning. I put my phone on mute when I'm working, so that there's no phone calls, no messages, no anything, no little buzzing sounds, and that helps me focus. So that's kind of my day, or at least I try to get it that way.
Makes you have gone into the whole investing field?
Oh, what made me get into that?
Yeah, what made you get into that?
I like having more than 2 paychecks in my mailbox.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did I forgot to mention you have a degree in economics.
Right.
So I assume that plays a big part in the capability of being an investor in the way you are. You also, in our conversation, you mentioned one of your projects is 74 times bigger than the original ones you've done. Do you want to share about that?
Yeah. So, believe it or not, the economics really doesn't play that much of a big deal in it. I got a college degree or university, as they call it in the UK, because I wanted to have a military career. So I was in a program called ROTC in college, Reserve Officer Training Corps. So I got a military scholarship. I went to university with that scholarship. And so to me, I was hedging my bets. If they paid for college, they had to take me on active duty, right? So I was hedging my bets. And what happened was that peace broke out, and they said, we don't need this huge military like we normally do. So they said, don't worry about paying us back. You don't have to come on active duty. And I was like, wait a minute. Well, I want to do that. So, so actually on the investing side, there is some research, there is some analysis, but a lot of it, I use very similar to like in the military, what's called IPB, intelligence preparation of the battlefield. So you know how you set up your maps and where the enemy, likely avenues of approach and likely egress routes, so forth. So when I'm looking at a city to invest in, that's part of it. I actually look at, okay, where do people live? What industry is there? What new companies are coming in? How many jobs will that create? So as I describe it, we look to invest in parts of the country that are quietly outperforming. Keyword is quietly outperforming. Mm-hmm. And there's indicators and warnings, just like the military. You have indicators, right? If SIGINT, signals intelligence, human intelligence, ELINT, electronic intelligence, picks up a signal, right? Then you do stuff based on these indicators. Very similar. So to me, an indicator would be a company says we're hiring 500 new jobs, or or two companies are moving in. So that to me is an indicator that this place is growing. And I see that the political leadership is making a concerted effort to bring in new companies. So that to me is an indicator. That's a place I need to be looking.
So
it's very similar.
Yeah. So those are skills that anybody who's interested or a potential investor in Africa would look for. Where new cities being developed, new roads being built, and like there's a new port being built in Mombasa, which has been made like a super port, and there's another one in the northern east coastline of Kenya. Those are skills
right.
You could transform, or someone could learn from you, learn and follow your lead and use them in other parts of the world. Okay. What's the most valuable lesson you've learned during your time on this planet?
Oh, wow. I got a couple. Really, really vet your partners. Vet them very well. Because once they're with you, it's like a marriage. Actually, it's easier to get out of a marriage than to get out of a business deal. So vet your partners very well.
You have any tips of how to vet somebody?
Google search is a great way to start. The other thing I'd say is look at how they've handled difficult situations in the past. Okay, because in business you will have it will happen, difficult situations, and you want to see how they act, how they react. Do they hide? Do they run? Do they take challenges head on? Are they collaborative? Because when everything is nice, and again, this kind of goes back to the military. In peacetime, everybody is a Rambo, right? Everybody is a tough guy. When things are difficult, whether it's bullets flying or people have been up for 72 hours nonstop, and they're going on, that's when you get to see the real soul of a person. You get to see if that person is still going to be, maybe not like, hey, how are you? Oh, everything's nice, but they're still committed to getting things done.
Yeah, are they a team player? Yeah, are they a team player?
Yeah.
Can they still keep
So,
the eye on the focus on the bigger picture?
Yeah. So, for example, I have someone, and I look up to him a lot, and he's also former military. And when he would go visit properties, I remember he would always. We have a fair amount of bases in the United States, so he would always stay at the base. Now, the guy's a multimillionaire, right? And since he was enlisted, he'd always stay at the enlisted quarters, right? And I would ask him. I said, "Hey, Chris, why do you stay there? Why not stay at the 5-star hotel?" And he said, "Nelson, when I go visit a property or visit places, that's investor money. Now I can do it, and he can hide the expenses, right? The property has a lot of expenses; they'll never find it." He said, "But I know I've done it. So I have to have a place to stay. I can easily justify a 4- and 5-star hotel, $200, $300 a night." He says, "I'll stay at the base, $30 a night." And so to me, that's an integrity thing. You see, he could easily justify it. Hey, I'll stay over there. I'm going around looking at the properties, giving people up as the investment. So that's an example of integrity. No one knows he does that. He knows he does that.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, that's really interesting, because I think if I had really took that on board so many years ago, I'd probably be in a more of a beneficial place today. What would you do?
And again, he also learned some lessons too. Okay, it wasn't like he woke up that way one day. He told me his story. So but his big thing is, hey, that's investor money. It's my money too, once it gets paid out. But for now, it's all of our money. It's investor money. So I'm not touching it.
That's good. That's real self-discipline as well. What would you do different? Is there anything you would do different based on your whole investor experience?
I would probably maybe the word is not aggressive, but I would definitely be more forward leaning about things. And I would every so often, I would take a step back. Instead of getting so like I'm focusing on hunting something, I would take a step back and take a look around and see what other indicators are there, what else is available, and a lot more activity generated towards specific outcomes. So instead of going after a goal, I would be looking at putting in systems into place of a system versus a goal. So, for example, when I hit my goal, I'm happy to hit the goal. But what I would do is I would put it in a system so that every day I'm making progress that may even surpass the goal. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah, I think it does to me. Do you want to expand on that a bit?
Yeah. So, we were talking about before Africa, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, right? So, to me, climbing Mount Kilimanjaro is a goal. Okay? So, it's a goal. Every day being physically fit is a system. Every day saying, when I have to go, let's say, to the 10th floor of a building, I say, I'm not going to take the elevator. I'm going to walk up a flight of steps. So, and when I leave the meeting, I don't take the elevator back down. I'll take a flight of steps down. So every day I do something that is getting me towards that. So if my goal is climb on Kilimanjaro, until I step on that mountain, do I start to feel better? But if my goal or if my system is every day be active, every time I walk around, every time I park far from a store and I walk, every time I go into a building and instead of taking the elevator, I walk up a flight of steps, even though people might think I'm kind of weird, I feel good because I'm executing my system.
I understand. When I used to work in commercial construction, I always made a point to walk up the stairs. And when I had my only apartment, I was on the second floor, second floor, but I never took the lift. I think I took the lift twice in 10 years. And that wasn't really me being in the lift. We had to put the fridge and the washing machine in the lift.
Yeah,
sorry,
of course. Yeah, that you got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and the other thing is cultivate relationships. Cultivating relationships is extremely important because we are the reflection. No, go for it.
In cultivating relationships, do you have a personal policy where you will have to feel comfortable with that person before you really, let's say, get into bed or partner with them? Or are you just, well, as long as he can do the job, then I'm not really too bothered?
Well, the first thing is to define what kind of relationship a person wants, right? Because it could be the cultivation of business relationships, the cultivation of mentors, or people that you're going to mentor, and even personal relationships. So it's all, what kind of relationship am I looking for? But there always has to be a certain level of trust, and that trust is developed. And again, in the military, it's a lot easier because if we share through a common bond or hardship, people become very transparent. Okay, and then in business, it becomes a person's reputation, and trying to observe them with the least amount of rose-colored glasses, I guess you could put it like that.
Okay.
So that would be it.
What's been your biggest trial through this whole investing and business things?
Oh my goodness. There's been a fair amount. One has been after the financial crisis of 2008. I had income producing properties. So those did well. But the challenge was always the mindset of being able to continue and going on forward and persevering. And that's where I get the system over goals, because if you hit your goal, then what do? Then what do I do? Oh, I hit my goal. But if I have a system in place, I always have something I'm looking forward to. I always have something I'm looking forward to.
The areas you pick to invest in, are they always in America? And if so, are they always in a certain state, or is it just you're not too bothered as long as you can make money and get there?
No, I want to say everything. My family, we own some property in Latin America. But the reality is, or as a mutual friend would say, the truth is I like to invest in the United States. And that's why my podcast is called investing in America. Because in the US, you have strong rules, you have a culture and a government of accountability, and that helps. Rule of law, strong government. So I could go to some other place and say, hey, I have the potential of making more money, but I don't have an infrastructure over there. I don't have a government I can trust. I have to kind of come up with all kinds of weird situations. And I mean, there's a lack of transparency. Is the information I'm getting accurate? Is it legitimate? So there's a host of other problems when I'm overseas. I have political instability. I have currency instability. I have economic instability. In the United States, we've got a big country, so I have a lot to choose from.
Okay. So you've experienced a lot of this from doing your Lloyd's of London, where you did, remind me again, where you did the insurance for kidnap and ransom.
Yeah.
So you've probably seen everything and all the figures as well.
Yes. Yeah, so it was Lloyd's of London. That was in between deployments. And I did not want to go back to financial services. And then a very, very good friend of mine, who's a mentor of mine, who unfortunately passed away. He was a very high-ranking officer within the CIA. He was one of my mentors. And just to clarify, I've never worked for the CIA. It's a joint unit. There was a CIA component, Central Intelligence Agency component to it. And we hit it off. We hit it off well. And he said, Nelson, when you're finished, do you want to go back to financial service? I said, no. He said, well, how about Lloyd's of London? I said, what? K&R, kidnap and ransom. And so he trained me while deployed. He trained me in all this stuff, you know, some sleep deprivation and reading reports and writing reports. And so when I came back, I had an interview with a company in the United States. And, you know, it was kind of, you're off and running. So my job entailed two areas. One was the marketing and sales of the product through a series of brokers in Latin America. And the other one was training clients on the kidnap prevention.
Okay.
So
So you had a bit of an exciting life with the best of both worlds.
yeah, it was, well, I learned a lot about the difference in leadership between a British company and the U.S. That I learned a lot about.
And how do they differ? The good and the bad and the ugly.
Oh. Well, if my former employers were to hear this, well, I'd just say there was no way the United States was going to stay a colony, okay? We think very differently. No, and actually, in all honesty, the Brits have a very good way of looking at it, because they have to look at other markets, okay? They have to look at other markets outside, and they've got the history behind it, you know, hundreds of years with Lloyd's of London. So probably the major difference is that the Brits have a lot of great history, and that is probably their strength and also the weakness. Yeah. Because it's so much history that I think sometimes it can stifle new ideas, new growth. Yeah. And a person might say, well, you know, I aspire to be like the Lord in the castle, and they do the fox hunts and, you know, this sort of thing. Well, that's great, but we also have to kind of have a new way of thinking for a world that's changing.
Okay. It feels like you want to say more, but you're being very careful with your words.
It's no, but it really, it was a big, there was a big, I mean, really, it was a bit of a, we in the U.S., I guess we're a lot more entrepreneurial.
Yeah,
and
because you have less of a social system. So when you have, I found from my experience being in Africa, they're very entrepreneurial because there's less of a government system to fall. Well, there's nothing to fall on within many cases.
Exactly.
So people learn to help themselves. And obviously, America's not big on healthcare for all and all the rest of it. So people have to learn to fend for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean even that. But what I mean is because our healthcare system is atrocious here. Okay, I'll be the first to admit it. But we're always looking for new ideas. You know, we're just like on the hunt for always new ideas, and yeah. Again, to me, it was a great experience. I wouldn't change it. It was a very, very good experience.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on. How has your mindset changed from before and after? And when I say before and after, you've entered into your career, you're the military. How, if you went, looking at yourself 20 years back, let's say, and to your mindset then to your mindset now, how's it changed for business and just everything?
Well, 20 years ago, I was more, I guess, almost of a hustler. 20 years ago, I mean, I was the guy, and again, I was a reservist, so I would go away to training. Well, while I was in college, and I loved going away to training in college while I was in university, because I enjoyed the physical aspect. I enjoyed all the things you could do and camaraderie. But for example, I remember once I used to buy people's guard duty. Okay. And, you know, they don't want to pull guard duty, right? I mean, what would you do? You had to sit at a phone and answer the phone at 2 a.m, right? So I'd say, hey, I'll do that for you. And I'd buy it or they'd sell it, you know, and I'd do that. And then I remember I said, okay, what else can we do? So I started to do soldiers' laundry. So I would say, guys, you guys go out and party. I'll do the laundry, and I would charge them. I bought a bunch of hangers and an ironing board and an iron. So while I was answering phones for the company commander, I'd be ironing the clothes, you know. I'd be there in the company orderly room. And if somebody walked in, there'd be this pile of dirty laundry, an ironing board, and me ironing and answering phones. And then what happened was guys would come back like at 1, 2 in the morning, hungry as can be. I mean, 19, 20 years old. So they'd be hungry. So I made friends with the cooks in the at the mess hall, and they had loads of extra food. So I said, bring that over. So then I would sell food out of my wall locker at night when the guys would come back on the weekends. And to me, this was like a gigantic adventure. Like the fact that I could do all this in the military, you know. And that operation came crashing to a halt when you know, we have these drug inspections, you know, with the drug dogs and the military police would come, and I was Private Zambrano, and all of my sergeants knew that I was doing this. So the drug dogs come into the barracks, and you're supposed to stand next to your wall locker, and you know, these huge German shepherds would come in, and they were barking like crazy, and the sergeants in my unit were laughing because they knew that there was no drugs, but there was a ton of food in that wall locker. And the MPs were like, we got him, you know, and, you know, we got the big dealer here. So I opened up the wall locker, and it looked like, you know, like a major supermarket chain was in there. You know, I had chicken, I had fruits, I had, you know, perishables here, non-perishables. There was this little bitty space that I had for my uniforms. And of course they say, hey, look, that's like unhealthy and you can't have all that food in your, so I kind of laid back off of that because I became more of a quote unquote corporate person. And But I always liked the entrepreneurial thing of, I don't like getting two paychecks. And then when I became an officer, well, you can't do that sort of thing, right? I mean, that's like a big no-no for officers. So I was thinking, okay, so how do I get around that one?
Okay, someone to do it for you.
Yeah, well, no, then it's bad because then it's fraternization with the enlisted. So, but then what I did was I met a girl, like all good stories, I met a girl, and she had a store that she sold a lot of military equipment. So, and we have all kinds of stuff. We wore in our uniforms and stuff, and she had all this custom-made stuff. So I would wear it, and the other officers would go nuts, and then they had to get it too, So we worked out something right there. But when I got recalled back to active duty, what I did is I had the leeway of being able to recruit who I wanted. So I recruited soldiers, and these were Navy guys too. I never had a Coast Guard, but Navy, Marine, Army, who were kind of business oriented because they could always figure stuff out in a way that no one had ever thought of. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'd give my 20-year-old self a
pat on the back.
Say kind of again. I'd say a little bit of a pat on the back, but to not take himself so serious in some areas, and in other areas take yourself very serious.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Would you encourage other people to invest the way you have?
Yeah, most definitely. Now, why do I say that? Because one is we put our own capital in, right? So we put capital in. The second thing is we invest in income-producing properties. So there's a big difference. People think real estate. Real estate is a big term. So on one side, you've got developers. Developers, to me, are almost in the land of speculation. It's a blank. There's raw land. They build something, and they hope something is going to happen, right? So an investor invests with a developer. They could be waiting 3 to 5 years to see a return on their investment, okay, as a developer. With us, you'll start to get a check. You will start to get a check or a dividend within the next 90 days because we buy existing buildings that are already producing income. And then our job is to make it more profitable. So I would tell people, there's a difference. Having said that, good developers are incredible. Ours is just we take less risk.
Okay.
And the return is pretty much almost the same.
So it'd be fair to say if you had to do it all again, you wouldn't change a thing.
As far as investing, no. I would have been more, and I hate to use the word aggressive, but that's what I would have been. I would have looked to have purchased more. I would have made more offers. I would have gotten out of my shyness shell and looked to raise more capital. I would have done that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Tell us about the Kilimanjaro.
Okay. Well, Kilimanjaro is something that Africa has always held a unique spot. Besides being of African American, it's been a place I've always had such an incredible curiosity about. One, it's a base of our ancestors, and on top of that, South Africa, and I'm going to get to Kilimanjaro in a second, was a place where everything was turned upside down. It was a place where the Cold War was a hot war, where the United States, my country, was backing South Africa, Rhodesia, and Cuba, Russia, China, East Germany were backing the black nationalist movements, black liberation movements. When Nelson Mandela came to power, that was like a big wow moment. And I always wanted to meet him. I always wanted to go and see part of that. Also, so that was that. And then Kilimanjaro is always something I always wanted to climb that mountain. So again, by a fluke of nature, I met someone who was actually heavily involved. He was a white South Afrikaner or white South African. And I told him about my desire to go to South Africa. And I said, Madiba, and he smiled. He says, you could be a South African, Nelson. You even use our term to describe Nelson Mandela. And I said, yeah, I'm curious. And then I told him, I want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And a big smile came on his face. He said, well, guess what? I'm part of a group called Trek for Mandela. And every year we climb Mount Kilimanjaro with the objective of hitting the summit on Madiba's birthday, Nelson Mandela's birthday. And I told him, sign me up. So part of the program is called Caring for Girls, which brings to attention the plight of girls in the townships in South Africa because of socioeconomic challenges that they face. They don't have the funds to buy sanitary napkins. So we bring awareness to that. We raise money to provide each girl sanitary napkins for the entire year. And so that allows them to go to school. So on the average, these girls are missing 60 days of school every year because one is they don't have the funds available to buy the sanitary napkins. So that's a huge give back to society. And once we do that, then we fly to Tanzania and we climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And I'll be back this year. And I'll invite all of your listeners to check out Google Trek for Mandela.
Okay, that's good. Well, I have to say, I'll round it up there. It's been more than interesting what you had to say. I'm sure the listeners are happy. And even though I stress to the listeners, it's not always about directly investing in Africa. It's also about the skills of an investor, as Nelson has brought to the podcast. We appreciate that. And we look forward to hearing from you, Nelson, again sometime. Before we go, can you just tell us where people can find you? What platforms, what social media, what addresses?
Yes. Well, you can find my podcast, Investing in America. You can find it on iTunes. We're making sure it goes up on the iTunes platform, but we're definitely on Spotify. So Investing in America, and you can also find us on Spotify. And also this year, I'll have a book coming out as well. And the book is also called Investing in America as well.
Okay, then.
Okay.
Cool.
And just to let you know, it's not that Nelson is so smart in the book. The book consists of a series of interviews with subject matter experts of what happens during the life cycle, not just a transaction, but the life cycle itself of a real estate investment. And the life cycle could be entire 2 generations, could be a legacy. So it's interviews with the subject matter experts that a person should be talking to.
Okay. Well, thanks again. And we look forward to having you on the show again.
And Simon, thank you for having me on your show. And I look forward to having you as a guest on my show as well.
Thank you. Okay then. Bye.
All right.